Hey everyone, Mitz here, and today I'm going to teach you how to make epic NPCs for your D&D adventures. Let's get started. The ideal NPC is literally the one that your characters want to interact with the most. Having a handful of NPCs ready to go at a moment's notice is a really good idea. It lets you be a little bit creative and improvise and slot these NPCs into anywhere in your campaign. I'm going to teach you a basic structure where you can tweak a couple of things and make an NPC for anywhere. These NPCs will also add a little bit of a twist to your world and add even more immersion. So first, let's talk about the types of NPCs that might exist in your world. Classifying your NPCs into different groups can make it easier to figure out what information they might know, how they'll act towards your party, and how they'll fit into your world. Here are a few different examples of where your NPCs might fit. There are many more, but these are just a few. A store owner, a guard, a noble, a patron or quest giver, a bartender or information giver, a commoner. You might notice that a few of these have professions attached to them. This is because they might have a very similar role in your world. A store owner, for example, is likely running his business for a profit. Some of them might haggle better than others. For the most part, that is their purpose in the setting. Guards are similar where they might be in a group, whether it's a city guard, a town watch, or even a clergy guard. They share a purpose of protecting something from evil and villainy should it approach. If you can divide your NPCs up into their purpose groups, this will make it easier to think of other information that they might know. Maybe about certain topics, locations, or even other people. Don't be afraid to mix some of these together too. Store owner could become a patron if he's after some miscellaneous magic item that he wants to buy from you and sell to a secret client. A bartender is a great place to start for local information, especially about other people in the town. Who knows, they might even know a secret or two. And if you're new to a town, even the local commoners will probably know more about where things are. And who isn't always looking for potions? Next, let's talk about physical traits. You can describe your NPCs however you wish. Some great examples can be found in the Dungeon Master's Guide. You can also leave some parts of physical descriptions out until the players specifically ask you about it. And if asked, improvise. Then take some notes and make sure they know who they're talking to. I'd try and suggest using a wide variety of characteristics here. It makes your characters seem more unique and actually involved in the world. Just remember, the more you describe an NPC, the more likely your players might think that that person is important. It doesn't always have to be about their physicality specifically. It could be about jewelry or clothing. Any one of those things could separate that NPC from the rest. Of course, not all NPCs require this much thought, but one or two little tidbits of information can really bring even the most mundane character to life. This is where we include some personality quirks. There is a very long list of quirks to be found in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And while those are good, I'm sure you have some fantastic ideas of your own, dancing and frolicking around in your homebrew world. Remember, first impressions last, even in a Dungeons & Dragons game. So have your NPCs stand out to the party. Give them something that the players can easily distinguish as that person. I tend to err on the side of these personality quirks more than the physical traits when it comes to describing the intricacies of NPCs, mostly because it's a little bit easier to represent these things while you're role-playing in a conversation. Some examples of this are tone of voice, maybe they have a tic, mannerism, or a specific way of speaking, an accent. Lots of different things can give this one specific NPC a lot of life. Also, how the NPCs interact with the party is also a very big part of their personality too. It's not always a friendly encounter the first time you talk to someone in Dungeons & Dragons, and perhaps your party would rather talk down the enemy than start a fight. Not that that's ever happened. This gives you a chance to figure out how NPCs would react to the party doing things around them. Did you just try and steal from a shop and the shopkeeper caught you? What's he gonna do the next time he sees you? Will you even be let back into the store? I highly doubt it. Even if it's not something this dramatic, mark down the small situations that happen with your NPCs and players, whether or not they're in favor or they disagree with how the party handled something. On to, do they have a talent? NPCs can be known for more than just their profession or their personality quirks. Do they have a special talent that they can perform, sing, dance? Maybe they're good with a blade. Maybe they're just good at playing cards and they've swindled the party out of money that they didn't even realize yet. This is another fun little thing that you can add to your NPCs. Having a talent like this could be the whole reason the party approaches them in the first place. Perhaps the store owner that they haggled with earlier is now in the tavern, gambling and winning a lot of money. And that's how he knows that even if he haggles and sells things at a lower price, he can definitely make his money elsewhere. Perhaps the bartender is singing behind the bar and earning tips from more than they would simply serving drinks. Usually, something like this is for the long-standing NPCs in your campaign. Some of these things could be a little bit of a twist to add some interesting spice into how your NPCs and players interact. And this leads into, what useful knowledge do your NPCs have? And do they have any secrets? NPCs are a great way of delivering information without your DM simply spilling the beans. You can use these NPCs as a primary delivery system for a lot of information in your world. Locations, rumors, plot hooks, and especially some help if your players are stuck. Having an NPC from a character's backstory that recognizes someone that can run in and help when they can't quite figure out the scenario that they're in. NPCs can know a lot or a little depending on how important or how useful you want the NPC to be. They can also hold little secrets. Giving them a slight secret that the NPC does not want the players to know means that every time they give information and it seems a bit fishy, the players make an insight check and maybe they'll learn a little extra. These secrets don't always need to be big. The bartender could just be keeping the secret that they really hate their job. Or even the general store manager could be keeping the secret that not making enough money and he might have to close up shop soon. These little secrets could turn into entire adventures. Maybe the bartender hates his job because lately thugs are coming in every single night and trashing the place. Maybe the party could help. Maybe the shop isn't getting enough business because bandits are attacking before its wares can get into town. Letting your NPCs do the talking as a dungeon master is extremely effective, extremely fun, and an interesting way to interact with your players. But don't forget, not all NPCs know all the information, and sometimes they get things wrong too. It's okay to throw in something that's silly, fun, or even a red herring. On to, are stat blocks necessary? Unless you need to thrust this NPC into combat for some reason, no, stat blocks are not very necessary at all. Oftentimes these NPCs will be used simply in conversations, so you'll want to at least give them some kind of mental skill stat. This can simply be done as a high or low threshold. You can just say that the NPC has a high mental threshold, meaning that perhaps they have a +5 or even higher in all the skills that come up due to charisma, intelligence, and wisdom. Their physicality, on the other hand, could be the same. High physicality, high strength, dexterity, and constitution. Although, if your NPC is a frail old man, perhaps his wisdom and intelligence are there, but he's a little bit grumpy, so his charisma's not so high. Physically, he might not be very agile or strong. So, you're gonna give him flat d20 rolls on everything except for intelligence and wisdom checks, and on those two checks, you're gonna add +5. Because this old fella's seen a few things. If you are going to put your NPCs into combat encounters, then I would suggest deciding their AC, their hit points, and whether or not they have proficiency in any kind of weapon. If they do, make it roughly the same as whatever level the party is. If your players are rolling +5s to hit with melee weapons, give them a +5 to hit. Just keep it simple. If you want this NPC to be a spellcaster, it becomes a little bit more difficult, but just give them a handful of first level and second level spells, make them fairly generic, and a couple of cantrips. You can still effectively not use a stat block and just have this +5 to things you think they might be good at, and a 0 for everything else. Oh, everyone, thank you for watching this far into the video. If you have liked it, please hit the subscribe and like button. It helps me out a ton. We just hit 200 subscribers on this channel, and I am still going, okay? We've got our Patreon, you can see in the background right now. This week, well, I guess this will come out next week. So last week we had our A to Z of monsters throughout the rest of the year. We're up to E, empty armor, and F for fifth element. There's a couple of puns, a couple of silly things going on. Go and check out the Patreon, link down below. You can join as a free member and get access to everything that Patreon has to offer. If you'd like to support, awesome. You can follow me everywhere at Critical Mitts. All right, back to the video. I'd like to talk a little bit about humanoids versus monster NPCs. I don't think monster NPCs get used enough, mostly because it's a lot more difficult to communicate with them if they don't understand a language that one person in your party knows. You can essentially design these monstrous NPCs the same way I talked about before with the high stats, low stats, although typically the monstrous NPCs probably already have a stat block in mind for the monster itself. If it doesn't come with the common language that one of your party members speaks, just simply give it to it. Make it speak common. It's completely fine. A lot of the times you're putting these monstrous NPCs in place of humanoid NPCs because humanoids might not make sense. They do need to have a reason for being where they are, and this could become an entire plot hook itself. And trust me when I say, if players come across a monster that they know normally can't speak common that all of a sudden can, they definitely want to talk with it. I would suggest using monstrous NPCs sparsely, because a lot of the time when players come across a monstrous NPC that they can talk to, they might think that it's guarding something secret or that it's super important, when maybe you're just putting it in because it doesn't make sense to have a humanoid there. Monstrous NPCs can be fun and just change the feel of this situation ever so slightly. And the last big tip I have is NPC party members. Well, sort of. There are 3 types of NPC party members that you can put into your player party. These can be created by the DM or by the players themselves. Each of them has a different level of importance to the party's success, and each of them play a slightly different role. The DMPC. These are basically just a character that the Dungeon Master runs, and I typically don't think that they're a good idea. Usually the DM doesn't really have enough time or effort to put into role-playing this one character with the intention that they deserve. However, there is a case for them if the party is missing a specific role that they might need to continue play. If you've got 5 players in your party and 3 of them are away and one of them is super important because they're the healer or something specific, then yeah, you can have a DMPC come along, but really just have them heal the party and don't do much else. DMPCs should be there to facilitate the rest of the party and not take the lead. Another type of NPC you can include in your party are sidekicks. Sidekicks kind of do the same job as a DNPC, except the players can control them, which is fantastic. These are great to have when you're running with a small group of players, and they're also really good for a sandbox type adventure, where you might run into an area where there's more enemies than expected, and you can have your sidekicks help out. Sidekicks also allow the party to do things like send messages, run on errands, and undertake even the most menial adventures that might reward a little bit of extra gold on the side. And the third type of NPC that you could join in your party, followers. That's right, I'm talking fans, groupies, hype men, staff. Maybe your party rescued one of these followers and now is obsessed with helping them in any way possible. Maybe they've got a room ready and a meal ready for them every time they return to town. Maybe they bring the party information from time to time and rumors from around the region. It can be tough sometimes to keep track of a handful of followers that are all loyal to the party, and until the party really decides to invest more time talking to them as individuals, you can just have them in the background. But this brings me to my last and most important point. I did mention this at the start, but the most important NPCs are the ones that your players choose to interact with. If you have information buried in an NPC that you have in mind for the players to interact with, but they decide that they don't want to, or they find another NPC more enjoyable to talk to, switch where that necessary information is coming from. Yes, you may have to adjust a few things here and there, but it'll be worth it. If you have a grumpy old man NPC set to give the players important information, but they just don't like talking to him, give him a little redeeming quality by maybe a kitten walks past and all of a sudden his attention shifts like, ooh, it's a kitty. But perhaps he's still an asshole anyway. Maybe they go to the shop and find 3 kobolds in a trench coat, and instead of telling the town guard that it's 3 kobolds in a trench coat, they keep the kobolds' secrets in exchange for information. Find who your players enjoy interacting with and make them the NPCs that hold all the keys. I'm not saying don't make grumpy old men NPCs, I'm just saying give them some redeeming features if you really want that one NPC to be the one with the information. Sometimes though, NPCs can turn into bad guys. And you know what you gotta do with bad guys? It's designing combat time. Let's do it.